In this episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief, I sit down with Gil from Formal Ferret Games to talk all about High Rise and what he changed since last time it was on Kickstarter. We'll get into that after a brief word about our sponsors. Then, after our chat with Gil, we'll see what's on Kickstarter in our Kickstarter Corner portion of the show. This episode is proudly powered by Jack Sporner and his Dungeons of Infinity that will be on Kickstarter through this Thursday at 8:52 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. So don't dilly-dally in backing this one. We'll chat more about it during Kickstarter Corner. This episode is powered by 60 Second Chef. Quick to learn, easy to play, and super fun. Plus, it'll help us get veggies in front of our kids on the tabletop. Who said they had to be edible? Want to know more? Go listen to my interview with one of the designers now in episode 255, Wishlist Wednesday, on Saturday, 60 Second Chef. 60 Second Chef will be on Kickstarter through Friday, the 22nd of March. This episode is powered by The Great Nameless, a game of divine might and cosmic horror. Sibling gods declare war on each other, while their mindless progenitor threatens to destroy all of creation. It's for 1 to 4 players. Catch our interview with Josh in their update entitled The Great Nameless, featured on podcast Getting Geeky with Game Relief. This episode is powered by The Character Casket. It's a coffin that holds and includes all of your essentials to be a player in a session of D&D. They're almost halfway to their funding goal and will be on Kickstarter through Monday the 15th of April. This episode is also proudly powered by Solar Flare Games. Robotech Crisis Point game has entered production and can now be pre-ordered with some extra pre-order limited edition Robotech items and exclusives. If you haven't heard of it, go back and listen to my episode entitled Robotech Crisis Point to find out more and pre-order it before they run out. This episode is also brought to you by Heroes of History. For listeners of the show, you can get a 10% rebate on the game by emailing sam@bradensworld.com with a copy of your receipt, and he'll get you a 10% rebate. And for the first 10 listeners to leave an Amazon or eBay review, he'll send you an extra 5% rebate, total of 15%. So, check out Heroes of History from Braden's World. This episode is powered by Overbattle. Overbattle is a 4X tabletop space warfare refined game, launching to Kickstarter at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time from the looks of it this morning. More to be said during our Kickstarter Corner portion of the show.
Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Welcome to Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf. Thanks so much for joining us today. We have a lucky treat from you. I'm actually not at a con, but the person we're interviewing is, so that's kind of different. But today we're joined by the mastermind behind High Rise, Gil Hova from Formal Ferret Games. Is that right? Is that how you fall in line with High Rise?
That's right, yeah, designer and publisher.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, with us, especially right in the thick of Gamma.
Oh, it's no problem. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Now, before we get into High Rise and everything, let's rewind a little bit if we could. How did you get into playing tabletop board games, Gil?
Well, I've played games all my life, and I even had Illuminati and Ogre and weird games like that growing up. So I was pretty familiar with games that weren't Monopoly or weren't Scrabble. I even had a copy of Can't Stop at one point also that I really enjoyed. So I had no idea who designed it, no idea of all the stuff underneath. But when I was in my early 20s, I wanted to follow up on this childhood dream that I always wanted to design a video game. I wanted to be in the video game business making video games because growing up, I'd loved video games especially. So I started researching board games because I figured they would let me help they would help me learn game design, and I would get a better understanding of how to make a video game if I learned how to make a board game. And that's when I discovered that I like board games more than video games, and I've never looked back since. I don't really play video games these days anymore. I pretty much just play board games exclusively.
Oh boy, so they won you over. What board game was it that won you over away from the dark side, I guess?
So here I was at a convention in New Jersey, my first ever convention, and wandering around looking for a game to play. And, I'd heard a lot about Munchkin because having grown up with Ogre and Illuminati, I wanted to see what Steve Jackson was up to. And they had just released this new game called Munchkin. It may have been a few years before then, but so I tried it and it was okay. I wasn't crazy about it. Then I tried Settlers of Catan, which I'd heard a lot about. And I thought it was pretty good. But then some guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, are you free? You want to play a game?" I'm like, "What's it called?" He's like, "It's a new game. It's called Puerto Rico. You're going to love it." And I did. That was the game that blew my mind. That was the game that showed me that board games could do what they do. Because up until then, I'd mainly played games that you got ahead by attacking the other players or by lying to the other players. And Puerto Rico wasn't like that. But it had this juicy complexity that Settlers doesn't have. So I really fell in love with the complexity, the systems, and just how dense the game was.
Oh, good. Yeah, everybody always talks about they got in by Settlers and different things like that. Actually, my gateway game, well, I don't know if it's gateway necessarily, but me and my son picked up Blood Rage after watching Rodney Smith tell us how to play, and that's where we fell in love with it.
I mean, there's this idea that gateway games have to be light and simple, but that's not necessarily true. You could get hooked by complex games. Some of us we can handle it as our first game. Sometimes that complexity is the appeal. There is this satisfaction in playing a game that is dense and heavy and thick. And that with Puerto Rico, plus the fact that it was mainly about building my own game and not really messing with the other players except for very specific intervals, that's really what got me with that game.
Well, there you go. And you've been going ever since. It looks like you jumped in, and according to Kickstarter, you have created 8. I don't know if any of those are relaunches. I know High Rise, this is a relaunch, but what can you tell us about the games you've created before High Rise, Gil?
So my first game on Kickstarter was called Bad Medicine. And Bad Medicine is a party game about pharmaceutical companies making horrible drugs. And that actually did much better than I expected it to. So I was really delighted by that. That came out in early 2015. But I knew that I wanted to do a bigger game. The game that I really wanted to do was The Networks. So that hit Kickstarter in late 2015 and came out in 2016. The Kickstarter was amazing. We raised over $100,000, and that really set me on my way. After that, I released Wordsy, the word game. That was also kickstarted, and that has gone through 3 printings. The Networks has gone through 4 printings and several expansions. And Bad Medicine, I put back on Kickstarter with an expansion. So it's all going really well, and now High Rise is my second large game. So I'm really excited about getting this one out.
Awesome. Yeah, with Bad Medicine, you had me intrigued because I used to be a pharmacy technician, so that sounds like a cool game.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm really happy with it. It's very silly and very weird.
Cool. Are those other 3 games available anywhere else?
Oh, yeah. Bad Medicine, I actually just re-released the 2nd edition last week, so you can get it in stores everywhere, and same with Networks and Wordsy. You can get them in stores everywhere.
Okay, awesome. But to the meat of the episode, High Rise, what can you tell us about that game?
So High Rise is a city building game with a little bit of corruption. So the idea is you're all building skyscrapers. You're going around this one-way track. If you've played games like Glenmore or Tokaido, it's a similar thing, but with a couple of twists. So you're moving around this board, selecting actions. If you're furthest behind, if you're not familiar with Tokaido or Glenmore, on this track, if you're furthest behind, it's going to be your turn to go. You can go clockwise as far as you want to any unoccupied space and do the action there. So you can make a really large move if you want to, but because it's the player behind who gets to take their move, you have to wait for everybody to pass you before you can take your next turn. So it's a game that really rewards difficult decisions. Like you have to really choose, do I want A or do I want B? And I've got to make that choice now. Now, you can make a lot of little jumps, and these games usually encourage little jumps, but High Rise has a couple of things in it that discourages little jumps. First off, you can get bonuses if you're first across certain spots on the board, so you have incentives to make big jumps. And secondly, a lot of the spaces are grouped together, and you can only do one action in each of those zones. Other people do actions in the zones, but if everybody passes you and you're the only one in the zone, you're not allowed to go dink, dink, dink on all the spaces. You have to do an action and then get out. So it feels very different. But there's a bunch of other cool parts about the game, like building skyscrapers. You build these skyscrapers, which they're actually chipboard tiles that are like 23 centimeters or so large, like 9 inches. So they're actually pretty large. The tallest ones are. So it looks really good. You put them out on the board, and wherever you put them out, you get a power. But you can land on those spaces also, and when you land on those spaces, you get the same power. Those powers for those buildings, those are all randomized at the start of the game, and there's between 15 and 20 spaces for them based on what kind of game you're playing. And there's 45 in the box with 5 extra for Kickstarter backers. So there's a lot of replayability in the game because you get a different set of these tiles every time.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like it. So, per se, me and you sat down to play High Rise, Gil. You just passed me. Now, what's my turn consist of until I pass you?
You're going to look at the board and find the best possible spot to go to. If that spot is before me, you get to go again. Once that spot is after me, then I get to go. Now, with a 2-player game, there's some extra wrinkles. But let me tell you first about one other feature of the game, which is corruption. You can supercharge some of your actions. Some actions are like, well, you can take this resource, and you can take another resource if you take a corruption. And those kinds of temptations are all over the board. So when you take corruption, you get a better action, but at the end of the round, the player with the most corruption gets a penalty. And at the end of the game, at the end of the game, you lose points based on how much corruption you have. The more corruption you have, the more points you're going to lose. It's possible to get a lot of corruption and win the game, but it's also possible to be last in corruption and win the game. So it really depends on the kind of strategy you do and how well you execute it. So what you could do is, if we're playing 2 players, there's going to be a third pawn out there that we're going to take turns controlling, which might sound like, oh, that's just your average dummy player that just blocks. Well, it could just block, or you can spend a corruption. You can take a corruption, and you can move it anywhere you want and take that action. So now you've got this interesting decision with 2 players because you can potentially get more actions, but possibly with more corruption. And with a 2-player game, it's a lot harder to recover if you're way ahead of corruption and the other player is way behind.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, that sounds intriguing. Is that kind of like the, what do you call it? Insanity. Like, I recently played Towers of Madness, where you get all your insanity, and then there's a different way to win and stuff. Is the corruption similar to that in any essence?
Kind of. I mean, there's not a different way to win in terms of mechanically. You're still trying to get most points, and you're going to get most points by building tall buildings. But it does mean that you're going to have to be a lot more aggressive about putting those tall buildings together. Like, if you take a lot of corruption, you have to use that corruption very efficiently and be like 2 or 3 buildings ahead of everyone, so that when the corruption comes calling and you lose your points, you're still ahead of everyone. It's tricky to do because a lot of times when you're first playing and you start getting corruption, you're not getting the corruption efficiently, and then you seem like you're doing okay, you're in the pack, and then you fall way behind because you haven't gotten that corruption efficiently. So there's a lot of skill to the game, and the more you play it, the better you get.
Yeah, sounds like it. I'm pretty excited to be able to play it when the Kickstarter delivers. So people have through the 25th of March to go ahead and back it. When it comes to High Rise, what makes your game pop is one my audience should go check out. And if they like what they see on the Kickstarter page, back it.
Yeah, so you're asking what makes the game pop?
Yes, sir.
So the juicy gameplay is one. We have Heiko Gunther returning to do the graphic design, and we have Kwanchai Moria doing the art. So the game's going to look amazing, and the buildings look really nice in that they are 3D standees. So there's this verticality that the game has that's really eye-popping. I've been trying to take pictures and videos and document what the game looks like because it doesn't really look like any other game out there. It really, really looks amazing. So I think between all those things, I think it's a really fantastic game, and obviously once you sit down and play it, it's gonna be really really good.
Yeah, like you said, it looks like replayability is awesome. And according to your graphic designer, his T-shirt on your Kickstarter page, he's the best graphic designer.
That was a joke T-shirt I got him at Essen one year, and for those who haven't seen the picture yet, the font is in Comic Sans with the worst kerning you've ever seen. So it was a great T-shirt. But he sent me a Valentine's card this year, so he must have liked it.
Well, there you go. Yeah, nothing better than a Valentine's, so that's awesome. Other than, I guess, getting your game funded on Kickstarter. Now, this is a relaunch that we've talked about a couple times. What did you change since the last launch on Kickstarter, if you don't mind my asking, Gil?
So I've been working on this game since April 2017, and pretty early on, I decided that the focus of the game was going to be that the buildings at the time would have been made out of stackable pieces. So you'd have your building resources, and then you'd actually stack them together, and that stack was your building. So this meant I needed a lot of stackable pieces, like 300 or so, and I didn't want just plain pieces of wood because those are easy to knock over. I wanted stackable plastic that could sort of not lock in that tightly, but enough that that you could easily assemble the buildings and they would look nice. So I got some 3D printed. They look fantastic. I priced it out and I put it up on Kickstarter, and the pledge was $100. And I thought that would be cool because this is a dense replayable game with a lot of fun mechanisms, and it's going to look really good. Well, backers didn't agree. They wanted it to be cheaper. So I huddled with my friends. I did a lot of play testing. I did a lot of soul searching, and I replaced the plastic with cardboard standees, which at first seems like it would be a big downgrade, but there are a bunch of really good things about the cardboard standees, other than being able to lower the price to $60, cutting the price almost in half. The first is that you have a platform, more of a platform for Quanchai's art. So now the game looks more consistent because the buildings you see on the box cover are going to be the buildings that you see in the game. So that's the first nice thing. The second nice thing is the buildings are a lot easier to put together. You just pop them in the standees and off they go. We're using plastic standees, which turns out they actually hold up the buildings really, really well. And the colors we're going to choose are going to look good. Right now, I'm testing with these kind of bright reds and oranges, which look a little distracting. But Heiko is a much nicer palette. I can't really get those colors right now, other than if I'd gotten some spray paint. But I'm going to wait until the samples come from the factory, and I'm going to use those color samples instead. So the plastic standees are important because they can actually hold up these tall buildings. Like, I don't have any problems with the buildings just falling over in the middle of the game. Whereas we tried, like, well, what if we don't use plastic standees? What if we use punchboard standees? And those fall over if you glance at them wrong. So the plastic standees are really good. And they hold up the board, the cardboard really nice. And the best part is if you want to see like past the building, we set up the board so it doesn't take that much neck craning to do that. And also you can always just lift the standee to take a look at something and put it back down, which is something you can't really do with a stackable plastic building. Like, the stackable plastic buildings are a lot more fragile and you can accidentally knock them over, even though it looks really cool. So I really have fallen in love with the standees. The board looks great. It's very playable. Like, the ergonomics of the game are actually really good. Even though you've got these tall strips of cardboard in the middle of the board, you can still see the whole board really nicely, which was a big priority for me because I didn't want the board to be blocked off by these huge buildings.
Okay, yeah, and you were able to lower your funding goal as well, it looks like.
Yes. The funding goal is now $50,000, down from $80,000.
Yeah, so that's amazing. And just scrolling through the two different Kickstarter pages, I like the standees as well. Was that a backer suggestion, or how did you come up with that?
No, that was just means to an end. Like, I needed a way to stand these up, and I went through all sorts of possibilities. Like, what if we made them like 4-sided punchboard buildings? Well, that would be really expensive because you need a lot of buildings. So now you need 4 times the amount of punchboard. That would be just totally unreasonable. What about the 2-sided, like 2 bits of cardstock that slide into each other like the trees in photosynthesis? Well, we tried that, and like I said before, those fall over at the height of the buildings that we're going for. The trees in photosynthesis aren't that tall. They're tall, but they're not real. My buildings are probably about 5 times the height, so it just wouldn't work in terms of the surface area that you need to keep these up. So flat cardboard in standees was the best option, and it still looks really good. And it's going to look even better because right now I'm just using these strips of rectangle for the for these, like these rectangular strips for the buildings. But in the final product, they're going to be die cut to match the contours of the art. So they're not just going to be these sort of blocky bits of cardboard, but they're going to look really, really good.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, just scrolling through the different Kickstarter pages. I like the new ones that you have on there, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm really happy with the look.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Most definitely. And then it's a lower buy-in, like you said. Now, yeah, so that's awesome. Now, when you relaunched, did you notice a lot of turnover, like a lot of people coming over that had backed that initial high rise?
Yeah, so, there's there's three camps here. There's people who liked the first one and who liked the second one. There's people who didn't like the first one; they felt it was too expensive, but who liked the second one because the price is much better for them. And there's the third group who liked the first one, but who really had their heart set on the stackable plastic, and they've decided to sit it out. Which I don't think is the right move because ultimately the game is the game, and the game is still really, really good, even with the cardboard buildings. But it's their decision and their choice. Like I can't tell them how to spend their money. So I think that the backers between the two campaigns have fallen into those two categories. And I think that second group of people who prefer the lower price, I think, actually I can tell just from the performance of the campaigns alone that the second group is bigger than the third group, which isn't to discount the third group's feeling or to say that they're wrong, but in terms of what I had to do to make the campaign work, I feel I made the right decision. And who knows, if the game winds up taking off after Kickstarter, if it comes out and people really fall in love with the gameplay and I wind up needing to do a reprint, who's to say that I could totally do an expansion down the road that does put the stackable plastic back in the game.
There you go, most definitely. Awesome. Now, Mina's coming there well, I guess it'll be too late. Gamma will be over by the time they get there. But Mina's coming to your hometown to stalk you. How would people go about keeping up with you and what you have going on over there at Formal Ferret?
Sorry, who's coming by? Oh, no.
No, well, I'm hoping nobody will come to stalk you in your hometown. So how can they keep up with you online instead, Gil?
Oh, sure. So you can follow my Twitter at Gilhova. That's also my address on Instagram at Gilhova, and that's 1L in Gil, please. You can also go to Formal Ferret Games on Facebook, and my website is formalferretgames.com, and I do have the networks and Wordsy available on my website with Bad Medicine coming soon. I'll also take this moment to say that if you're in the Bay Area, I'm going to be doing a whole lot of demos of High Rise this weekend and next week at the time of recording. So I probably should give you the date, right? Today is the 13th that we're recording. So this would be starting on March 16th. So between, I'd say, March 16th and March 20th, keep an ear out on my social media, and you can see where in the Bay Area I'm going to be showing off my game. And then I'll be flying back home, and the campaign will end on the 25th. And then hopefully you'll get to try the game. I'll be at PAX East the following week, so you can try the game at PAX East.
Awesome. So yeah, especially those in California, as I know we get our most downloads of the states. They're in California, so if you're listening, make sure you head on over and figure out where to find Gil so you can play the High Rise with him. So and tell him Getting Geeky with Game Relief sent you. And then
yeah, and I will be showing the game at Kubla Now, which is a small mini Kubla Con that's going to be on the 16th and 17th.
Oh, awesome. I want to say, is that the one? I don't know. I want to say one of my friends is maybe going, but I'm not sure. But yeah, like I said, if you're listening, go ahead and head on over there so you can go ahead and play High Rise. And then, like you said, PAX East as well.
Yes.
Awesome, most definitely. So go ahead and check out High Rise, and if you're listening, make sure you head on over to their campaign page. It'll have maybe a little bit over a week or about a week to go by the time this releases. So make sure you head on over and back it if you like what you see. And yeah, we don't want to keep you all day, Gil, but we really appreciate you coming on Getting Geeky with Game Relief with us to talk all about High Rise.
Great, thanks so much. Thanks for having me, Lake.
Yeah, no problem. Wow, I'm so glad we got the chance to sit down with Gil to talk all about High Rise. I'm really excited about all the changes he made, and I can't wait to play it. You know what else I'm excited for? I'm excited to see what's on or is about to be on Kickstarter. Hit it, Princess Leaf.
What is this place? What is it doing here in the Leafs computer? Oh, it's Kickstarter Corner with the Leafs.
Was I sleeping through this campaign or what? Something like that. I should have been telling you all about it all along. Anyways, Dungeon of Infinity, a board game for 1 to 5 players. It features random dungeon creation, solo, co-op, competitive, or story mode. We got to try it out clear back when it was on Kickstarter the first go-round. It's only gotten better. Want to hear what we thought of it clear back then? You should go see what I thought about it along with Princess and Barbarian Leaf. You can find that in Family Fun Day Friday episode 18 when we talked about Archon and Dungeons of Infinity, both on Kickstarter. We'll leave our link to that episode on BGG in the show notes. Go give it a listen and make sure you back Dungeons of Infinity before this Thursday, the 21st of March at 8:52 a.m., so don't dilly-dally. I'm a big fan of tableau building games like Machi Koro and Valeria Card Kingdoms, so I was excited to see Valeria Card Kingdoms Crimson Seas on Kickstarter. They're bringing us not 1, not 2, but 3 products in this Kickstarter campaign. That's right. Crimson Seas, an expansion to Valeria Card Kingdoms, Ward Towers, a Valeria Card Kingdom expansion pack, and Corsairs of Valeria, a standalone dice game. Watch for a review from myself and Wizard Leaf once he gets feeling better, and back their campaign before Tuesday the 26th of March so you don't miss out on the fun. Who rules your gaming group? Or is it everyone for themselves? No more, because now you can totally let your inner villain out, but only in Big Bad Overlord. Big Bad Overlord is a competitive tabletop card and dice game where you use luck and attitude to take over the world. Players assume the role of evil dukes, trying to destroy their rivals in order to become the new overlord. It's a combat game with card drafting, bluffing, player elimination, and lots of bad puns. Players build their armies, form alliances, betray one another, and fend off the forces of good in the quest to become the greatest villain of them all. Did you catch my episode with the Big Bad Overlord himself? If not, hurry and go listen before he burns your village. Want it burned later on? He's got you covered in my favorite pledge level, Burn Your Village Last. However, during my interview, he convinced me to up my pledge so I can get the game. But if you still just don't want it burned, first, get a load of this. If you pledge $1 or more, my numberless legions will burn your village last when they rampage through the countryside, wreaking havoc and destruction. But why not forgo the village burning and just get the game so you can be the one doing the burning? Only one way to do so, and that's by backing Big Bad Overlord before Wednesday the 27th of March. Have you heard of or seen Fuzzy Mage Fight? It's a card game of 2 to 6 players in which you play as fuzzy mages with unique abilities fighting to become the most magical fuzzy mage ever. Their campaign funded in only 6 hours. In case you missed it, I sat down with a couple of creators. You should go listen to that. It's easily found by going to their campaign page and checking the update entitled Huge Update, Linen Yesh, a new 35k stretch goal, and so much more. It's at the very bottom. Speaking of at the very bottom, on that link to my interview at the bottom is also a giveaway they're doing, and you already get an extra entry by subscribing to this podcast. So go give it a listen and enter. Then back their campaign before Wednesday the 27th of March. Speaking of games that already funded on Kickstarter, I wanted to bring your attention that the Big Bad Overlord has funded on Kickstarter, so it's going to be a reality and you don't want to miss out. Don't tell the Big Bad Overlord that I forgot to tell you that during that initial talk of it. He might burn my village after all. Did you ever watch infomercials back in the 80s and 90s? I did. I loved them. I knew if I was watching them, I was awake when everyone else was asleep. A teenager's dream. At least that's what I thought, especially if it was a school night. I also loved role-playing back then with my friends. So imagine if all three of those things were combined. You'd have something like Nightlife Tabletop Game that I found this morning during my Kickstarter crowd surfing. Their Kickstarter video is a dope or awesome infomercial-like video. I'd recommend y'all go watch it so you can feel a little of what it was like for me way back when. Back in the 1900s, like my kids so lovingly state. Then check out all about the game. Nightlife is a tabletop game about 1980s wizards with emotional issues. So strap on your leggings, leather boots, or rollerblades, and don't fear the Reaper. Check out some of their updates to see some of the stellar art. Then make sure to back Nightlife Tabletop Game before Tuesday, the 2nd of April. Another thing you might have done back in the 1900s was play Clue. Well, I know I did. So imagine if that was thrown into a hobby board game of cards that had a cool mechanic in which you couldn't see all your cards, but your friends could. And you were trying to thwart the murderer before the actual crime went down. If you did this, you'd probably have a note for murder, a race against time to prevent a crime set in the world of Sherlock Holmes. Deduce the criminal, their weapon, and the planned location of the murder before it occurs. Want to know more? Go give my interview with Michael, the publisher, a listen in their update entitled Player Abilities. Either way, back it before Thursday, the 11th of April. Last but not least, are 2 games launching to Kickstarter today. First, we've got Viking Jarl. Viking Jarl is a fun and exciting strategic board game about Vikings, Norse mythology, pillage, and trade and conquer. Sam Healy of the Dice Tower had it on his top 10 anticipated games of 2018. Well, it's back on Kickstarter, and this time it's going to rock our socks. There will be an awesome giveaway with the Giveaway Geek really soon, as well as we will have Richard back on the show to talk all about Viking Jarl. So go check out the page and make sure to back it once it launches. If you're listening to this later on, make sure to back it before the 18th of April. Another one launching today is Overbattle, the All War. I'm really excited about this one. Overbattle is a huge 4X tabletop space warfare refined. That's right, Overbattle, the All War features a 30-inch by 6-foot game board, neoprene for the deluxe version, that includes a patent-pending 3D combat battle system known as CASI, which is short for Combat Assault System. By utilizing 3D combat, new gameplay opportunities present themselves as you take control of one of 4 primary factions in the Overbattle universe, each with their own set of unique action choices. It's huge, if you didn't get that from all that. And I'll have Rob on Thursday's show to talk all about it. But do you want to hear it before your friends? Then jump on over and check out the Kickstarter page once it goes live. I have it on good authority that our interview will be there as well. Back it on Kickstarter and bring the experience of Overbattle home. Wow, that's quite the lineup on Kickstarter. Season 3 of our podcast will be on Kickstarter through the 1st of April as well, so go check it out. Now is our least favorite time, and yours as well. Time for us to get on with our lives and you to get on with yours. So until next time, go ahead and get geeky, stay geeky, and bring others into the geekfold by sharing this podcast with them. Gamer Leaf out.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.